Hello, and welcome to Broads and Books. I'm Amy.
And I'm Erin, and this is episode number 120, The Right Stuff.
The Right Stuff. Who does this come from, Erin?
The New Kids on the Block.
Obviously.
And you, because you got the right stuff.
Oh,
the right stuff. You got the right stuff, baby.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was cathartic for my 13-year-old self.
Cathartic.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
New Kids on the Block are an institution.
Yeah.
God.
Well, I picked this because,
You did.
well, one, there's a couple things to note here. Mm-hmm. All summer long, we've been riding the wave of 80s pop songs as our theme.
Yes.
And this is the end of summer. Mm-hmm. So this is our final one.
It
And
is.
we figured let's go out with the ultimate 80s boy band song.
Go out with a bang.
And in terms of what we're thinking of theme-wise, we're looking at like how we as women, as girls, are taught to try and be the right stuff for boys.
The right stuff.
We got to be the right stuff,
Just like you got the right stuff.
baby.
Love the way you
Turn me on. Exactly. It's all about that damn male gaze for Jordan and Donnie
Jonathan.
and Jonathan and
Danny?
Danny?
Is there a Donnie and a Danny?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the fourth one that we don't remember.
Jordan, Jonathan, Danny, Donnie.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Oh, man.
Maybe my mind has blocked it out. Like,
Yeah, it
listen,
must
you
have.
had your
Yeah.
time. You had plenty of time with these guys in your locker.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Dreamin'
100%.
dreams.
Dreamin' dreams. Loving on them. I had a keychain that you could look through and see the little pictures of them. Like,
What were they doing in the little picture?
it was like little poses. Like, I remember it was like fluorescent green and you held it up to your eye and you could change the picture. Like, you could click a little button and then the
Wow.
picture would change. Yeah.
Interesting.
It sounds high tech, but it was like basically those, did you ever have those old
Oh, yeah.
school
Yeah.
things you
Yeah.
look through? Yeah, it was basically
Do you think there was a porn version of that where you look through and you're
hope
like,
so.
yeah, I hope so too.
If not, that was a missed marketing
That was a
opportunity. In
missed
fact, it
marketing
could be happen now.
I mean, it could
People
be.
love retro stuff.
They sure do. And they're still out there selling their wares.
I don't know how one procures porn images to put in one of those outside of doing it yourself, which is a non-option.
See, listen, this is why we're not in the porn industry. 'Cause
You're
we
right.
don't know how to
Yeah, that's
do
it. That
We
is
don't know
the only barrier right there. If that were gone, I would be
we would know.
on
We
it.
would know. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, should we talk about New Kids on the Block for a little bit? Let's do it. I mean, especially for women our age, this was the seminal group.
Did you ever see them perform?
Yeah, Iowa State Fair.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! In
When
their
I was
height
like-
at that, like
yeah,
Iowa State Fair?
yeah.
Okay.
No, it was like 88 or 89, and I was like 11 or 12, and yeah, that was the one I told you. Like we were in a line because it was general admission, so it was like just a bunch of girls my age with potentially a parental figure or
Right.
with a bunch of people, and it was so hot that day they were just hosing us off.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which started off the whole on a weird vibe, just hosing us down. All of us
Yeah.
preteen girls
Yeah, that seems
hosing us down.
seems wrong.
Yeah. But I remember just because we sat very high up. My dad took me, and they were doing the Right Stuff dance on the stage.
Yes.
Did you ever see them?
Right stuff. No, I never saw them in person. I mean, I saw everything I could
Yeah.
ingest TV wise, and I had
Yeah.
the keychain. I think I had a poster, but no, I never saw them. If you had the opportunity now, would you go see them?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
Same.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It was a moment in time. I don't care to revisit that moment in time.
Yeah, you know what? I was in that boat. And I'll say I'm 80-20 that I wouldn't go.
Okay.
But I did see a few years ago at the Iowa State Fair the I Love the 90s show.
Yes, you did.
And it had Salt and Pepper and Vanilla Ice and all these and Spinderella. And I loved every second
Yeah.
of that. It was great. But
there was like a feel to it, like a
Yeah,
retro feel.
yeah, and
it was probably all people our age, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was so much like there were so many people involved in that show. They only each played like one song. Or one or
that's
two songs. It was
perfect.
just their hits.
Just their
Like,
hits, yeah.
I didn't have to commit to an entire show of New Kids on the Block.
Yeah. Oh God.
Or a Vanilla Ice.
Can you imagine?
No.
Like a deep cut from New Kids on the Block? No, thank you.
What? What is this
No,
song?
thanks.
What is this song?
That reminds me of a Pride I went to with Michael and Heath and Eric many years ago, where they had Debbie Gibson, and she was playing deep cuts, things I had no. And she was doing like a little Broadway thing, like a few cabaret songs. I'm like, listen.
No, Debbie.
I'm sure some people here are very keen about this. This is not what I came to hear.
No, that's not what I want to hear
I
from
wanted
Debbie
to hear
Gibson.
Electric Blue.
Yeah.
That's all I needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like at some point you just have to admit what you are. Like I don't
Yes.
think that New Kids on the Block is out and about now trying to act like they were like serious musicians or like really change the landscape of music. Like you can't put yourself on that level.
No.
Which is interesting because when we decided on this, which is funny that I couldn't remember the name because earlier this week I did look up their names and I still can't remember.
Yeah. No, I didn't even bother doing that.
But there was a lot of think pieces and articles about this idea that the Beatles were actually the first boy band. And like, I had a very visceral reaction to that. What's your reaction to hearing that?
I think maybe in their early years they could potentially be called that, but then they far transcended that with probably by taking a lot of drugs.
Fair, yeah.
But you're right. I think they started maybe as something where it was packaged in a way, but then they decided, no, we're going to push ourselves and become something else. And maybe it depends on who's going to see it, because early Beatles, it was a lot of young girls, right?
That's true.
Maybe that's why they called it a boy band.
Yeah, that's true.
What did you think about it?
Yeah, I could just sort of had like a no, totally different. Because I guess in my head, a boy band is so, like you said, so packaged. Like we've picked these people to be together because they're all fulfilling a different role, and we've written the songs. It's almost like an acting gig, like you're playing a part.
And maybe that's just been more of a modern thing, whereas like Beatles, maybe even Jackson 5, like they all came together organically, but they could be called boy bands maybe.
Yeah, when you put it that way, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think anyone that I felt like was more of a true musician, I sort of like,
absolutely,
you sort of cringe because you're like, I don't feel like we consider boy bands musicians.
Which is interesting too. It kind of reminds me of like some of our discussion about like chick lit and stuff. Like when you package something by the fact that women are reading it or watching it or whatever, it's immediately considered less than.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm doing that automatically.
But that's how we were taught. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe they were a boy band. And maybe we have to be okay with that.
Maybe. And maybe they're the way to change that rhetoric, I guess. Yeah. Although I also feel like I don't feel like that. I mean, I feel like people were attracted to the Beatles for sure, but I don't think anybody was like using them as sex symbols.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look at my Calvin Klein underwear sticking out.
I mean,
like,
that also wasn't the culture at the time either.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Speaking of Calvin Klein underwear, let's talk about the Wahlbergs.
Oh.
Let's talk about, I mean, first, obviously, Donnie Wahlberg is in New Kids on the Block. He's also an actor. His brother, let's remember Marky Mark.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Yeah. I mean, now he's a very esteemed actor, but he started as a rapper.
He did.
And that also made me think, you have told me in the past that your husband is an enormous fan of Wahlburgers, which is first off a business direction I did not expect from Donnie or Mark Wahlberg and their family.
That's all Paul, their brother.
Oh.
Because he's a chef, a trained chef. And he wanted to do this, and I'm sure he didn't have as much money as Donnie and Mark.
That makes sense.
Then they all went in as partners. So that's where it was born from. He's really the head guy driving that. Yeah. And yes, Mike is obsessed, but his obsession with Mark Wahlberg came before the obsession with Wahlburgers.
Interesting.
He truly, I'm going to reveal some psychosis.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Truly believes that if him and Mark Wahlberg were to meet in real life, they could be best friends. And when I say truly, I mean truly. I'm not, that's not hyperbole. That's not like, haha, that's funny. I mean, like, I think, at first I thought it was kind of jokey, but I think that there's some part of Mike that truly thinks if he met him in person, they would be friends. He's got some kind of impression of him.
Two thoughts in response to that. One, that's really endearing that your husband has such a belief in that. And two, I think he might be right. I could see those two connecting.
I know.
On
it's
a
hard
level.
to argue with.
Yeah.
So then that's why he got all in on Wahlburgers. And we went the first time and he was
Is he stalking him? Is he stalking Mark Wahlberg?
I think that I don't think he expected to see him there. I think he just thought it was his duty to support him.
Sure. His future best friend.
Yes,
he
future best friend. He got to try this out. And I will say the first time we went, he fell in love and we went back quite a few times. And then as of late, he has been very disappointed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's had a couple bad experiences right in a row.
Oh,
and
no.
He's trying to give him a break and hope that it's COVID, but it feels as though maybe some food quality went down.
Oh, Mike.
And Yeah, he's feeling
Would he still be
disappointed.
Mark's best friend now?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And in fact, it has made him feel as though that needs to happen even more because he needs to help guide them back to a better path.
So do you remember like what, a year, maybe a couple years ago, Mark Wahlberg was selling some sort of like supplement and it was appearing at Hy-Vee stores here in Des Moines and he in fact was going to make a personal appearance. Did Mike try to go? Was he?
No, but because we never pay enough attention
Okay.
and we see these things after the fact because he was just at a new Wahlburgers like a couple months ago in Grimes or something where they were opening one up. And a whole bunch of people texted him like, do you know Mark? Well, you better get to Grimes. And Mike feels that it needs to be more of a like chance one-on-one encounter. He feels in a fan situation, it's not going to be the best time.
Okay. So he's thought this through.
Yes.
Very much.
Yes.
Very much.
Yes.
I wonder how we could engineer this, or is it best not to engineer it?
I don't know. I think it might be one of those things that's better just to be like, hey, this is,
This is a lifelong
this
dream.
is a fun thing to dream about.
It's a fun thing to dream about, yeah.
We're probably not doing anything about it.
Did Mike ever have a musical side? Like when he was younger? Could he and Marky Mark connect on that level?
Maybe. I mean, he's got some bands that he loved, like nostalgic. I mean, like Motley Crue,
Yeah.
Def Leppard, Poison, big Joan Jett fan. Like some of those, he's a big fan. And Elvis for other reasons. But I don't know if it would be. I think he just thinks like on a business level and personality level. And I think that he might be basing that solely on movies. So I'm not sure how well, suited that all is.
Sure.
But,
I mean, but from interviews and things like that, his public persona seems like it would mesh with Mike.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Well,
Mike is a very much, if you're kind of a no BS person,
Yes.
that's his favorite type of person. So he's right on with you then.
someday. Someday those two will meet and it will be a glorious day.
It will. And I promise listeners that we'll report back and I'll do my best to record whatever happens if I'm around for that situation.
Well, and if you are around, you will be quickly forgotten. And it will be,
I will get shoved aside. I mean, there's a high probability that I get trampled in whatever scenario this happens.
And a running towards Mike.
Let's not forget that for a period of time during COVID, Mike and I thought it was a good idea to take like nature hikes, which is not us, but we did. That's how desperate we were to get out of the house. And there was a sighting of a snake in which he shoved me and ran to the car. So I have since then known where I stand in the hierarchy of survival, and it is not the top.
And meeting Marky Mark will be a moment where you are shunted aside.
And when I say snake, I mean like I wasn't even afraid of the snake.
Okay,
Like
okay.
it wasn't, we were not in danger, but he still felt the need to move me to that side of the sidewalk and take off and say, I'm going to the car. And okay, did you hope I was going to fall and the snake was going to be distracted?
There's so many layers to Mike that are just fascinating. And I know he doesn't necessarily listen to us regularly, but I wonder how he'll feel about the fact that we've spent 10 minutes dissecting a little bit about Mike.
I think he would feel good about it.
I'm glad he would, yes. I mean, yeah.
What else can you do?
What else can you do?
It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle, that guy. Okay, so you wouldn't go see New Kids on the Block.
Right.
Is there an 80s or 90s performer you would go see if they were touring now?
So many of the acts that I liked in the 80s and 90s, probably not.
Yeah.
I think at the time I was much more into like pop and to like Motley Crue, Def Leppard, like Guns N' Roses. And they've had their time.
Yeah.
I think that's best left in the past.
Well, that's just a sign of adulthood, right? We understand that sometimes fulfilling your wishes means you're going to be disappointed.
Very much so.
You just need to protect yourself from that sometimes.
Yeah.
And some things need to be preserved. There's a high chance that is not going to go well.
No. And I did have a little brush with that. I told you I've gone to many Lollapaloozas when I lived in Chicago, and especially those first few years. And there were every once in a while like an artist brought in for probably our age group to be nostalgic about. Like there was Billy Idol one time. I loved Billy Idol.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how old he might have been at this time, but he was still rocking leather pants and no shirt and like bleach blonde hair and everything. And it was great, but it was also like, oh man, are you trapped in this now? Do you need help? Do you need to signal for help? Same thing with Iggy Pop. I love Iggy Pop. And I saw him at Lollapalooza and it was great, but it was also like, wow, that skin is leathery. That is naked, leathery skin. And also he invited a bunch of people up on stage and I was like, you're going to die.
Yeah, that's not safe.
You're more fragile now than you used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, like blink twice if you need us to get you out of this. Like, do you have other dreams and goals? Because this feels like maybe we're all just forcing you to keep doing the same thing.
What about you?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm in your boat. I just don't know anyone that I would feel like, yes, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. Because for the same reason, I just think I would be disappointed.
And even some of the bands in the 90s for like high school and college, maybe. I mean, I told you about the potential Alanis Morissette, except that it was at the State Fair.
That's what was jumping to my head.
No.
I'm like,
yeah.
I would have
definitely, like, she'd be amazing, I bet.
Yeah. And I heard that concert was amazing.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I've seen Foo Fighters many times, and they're still, they
great,
founded in the 90s. And so there's definitely some, but the past is the past, Erin.
The past is the past. And sometimes it's okay if
sometimes that's okay.
That just stays there.
Yeah. We decided to choose the right stuff and to sort of talk about as a theme, like what it means when we are trying to be the right stuff for boys. Do you remember the first time that you realized, like, according to, society and to the norms of society, you were supposed to make yourself look desirable to men? Or to boys?
I think so. I mean, I have to imagine that I had experiences with that in like elementary school at some point. Yeah. I mean, that starts so early for girls. But I think I became acutely aware of it like in that 6th, 7th grade where people started sort of like pairing off. Like you realize, oh, there's like this boyfriend-girlfriend situation and like, oh, that's why it matters what I wear or like what my hair looks like or whether or not I wear makeup or, I started to realize all these things. And then I also think I realized really early on, like how overwhelmed I was. Like it just wasn't something that ever came naturally to me. So then you start thinking about all the things you're supposed to think about. And I was like, I just don't think I can.
It's way too much.
Yeah.
And it's so confusing.
And I think even like 7th grade, Erin had an idea, which is the same that adult Erin has, which is if we all just collectively agreed not to do it, we wouldn't have to do it.
God, yeah. Just like, when you said you thought we had all collectively agreed to just release things all at once and not do this stupid weekly schedule.
Yeah.
Apparently not all of us collectively agreed.
Right. It's like a senior skip day. It's why that will never work because everybody says they're going to do it. And then you always have those couple people that are like, I'm too scared. And they show up. Yeah. It's the exact same thing. But this would be good for all of us.
This would be wonderful.
We'd all save a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of time. A lot of heartache. We'll all just get on the same page. And you know what? I think that men would appreciate it too, because I think that it's not the same level by any means. Don't get confused what I'm saying, but I also think that they're sort of put in a box. Like you're supposed to find certain things attractive. They're sort of trained that way, and it takes them some time too to get out of that headspace of like, well, that isn't actually how I feel. Yeah, or that isn't actually important. To me.
It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone.
It's not.
On the
It
gender
doesn't serve
lines.
a single person.
No, I remember in 4th grade, I got a boyfriend. I don't know how that happened. I don't remember ever speaking to this young boy.
Oh, okay.
But somehow we were dating or we were going together is what we called it.
Okay.
And I remember frantically going home and doing sit-ups because I needed to look good for this boyfriend that I never spoke to.
I remember going home in like upper middle school, lower high school, and like, oh, I got to wash my hair again before I go out so it doesn't look greasy, or I want it to look a certain way. I mean, okay.
Yeah, like who's going to care?
No one's going to care.
No one's going to care. I remember too, like much older, when I sort of realized that I was bisexual, then it became really interesting too, because I realized how much, even if you have another like sexuality, you're still supposed to appease what men want. Like whenever I would tell like a guy that I was bisexual, it was very much turned like, oh, this is going to be good for me kind of thing. Like it was a very much, it was never about like you and your needs or your identity or something. It was like, ooh, this is designed to make me as a man happy or intrigued, which is just gross.
When you realized that, did you feel that you were supposed to look desirable for females too? Like was there anything there? Or
never to that same level.
Really?
Never.
Interesting.
Obviously, yes, you want to look nice for, someone, but never to the crazy
to the same level.
making. Yeah. which then just shows you how fucked up it is when you can look at both sides like that. Yeah.
I think back, like some of the times that Mike and I have had miscommunication, it really comes down to like one of us assuming something about the other one that's just sort of a societal thing that we put on the other person. Like we didn't even really stop to examine it or be like, well, is that what you think? Or is that what I actually think? Or how does this...
I think there's so much of relationships where you're just parroting what you think you should be saying or what you think you should be doing.
Yeah, 100%. And it the more I think about it as I'm older and, you know, you have kids that are getting older and you think a lot about what a disservice that is that we're not helping. Instead of focus all this time on physical appearance, we're not spending enough time talking about like, how does this person make you feel?
Yeah.
Do they treat you right? How do you know what a red flag is and what a, you know.
Do you even like them? Or are you just trying to get them to like you?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Ugh.
Okay, so we've established that that part's a lot harder for a female. If you were going to give a male a quintessential day in the female experience, what would you absolutely include?
On Instagram a few weeks ago, I think, I saw this. It was a video being taken at a rodeo. Okay. So all these like very manly men, right, at this rodeo. And there was a company there. It was a company, I believe, that sold like pain pills or something to help women through periods.
Oh.
But why they showed up at a rodeo is because they had a tool that they would put against men's abdomens to simulate period pain. And there were 10 levels that you could go to. And so they would go like, okay, this is level 1, you know, and then just keep going up levels and see how the men reacted. And every one of these tough men by like level 3 were like, oh my God, just like thrashing around in their seats trying to. And then by comparison, they put a girl in the chair and it was at level 10. And she's like, I mean, I guess this hurts, but it's normal, you know? So I think that right there, it just like if it was a quintessential day in the life when we happen to have our period, they would be incapacitated mentally, physically, everything, and shocked at the amount of pain that we live with on a daily basis.
That you're just supposed to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say when you're saying the part about like fixing your hair and doing all that. I'd say you do all that. And if I was going to give you a quintessential female experience, you're about to walk out the door and you had no idea and you get your period. You're not scheduled to. You're not supposed to. It just happens. Absolutely.
And now, oh shit, do I have to change my pants? Do I have to change like all of this? Yeah. And I got to put a bunch of shit in my bag now to like, because who knows?
Check every time.
Yeah. I got to take some Advil. I got to, yeah. Oh, and maybe I'm a little bloated today. Maybe I don't want to wear these pants.
Yeah.
Because they're going to cut into my gut.
And then when you feel that and you've spent all that emotional energy, you got that going on, you feel a little harried, you're trying to rush out the door, then probably what needs to happen is you need to go somewhere where you're going to encounter someone who says something like dear or honey
Sweetheart.
or sweetie or something along those lines. And then on top of that says, you just calm down.
Yep.
When you haven't even expressed a single moment of upsetness.
Let's be rational. Let's be logical about this.
Yeah, just, okay, I know you're upset. Like, just calm down.
Yeah, when you have...
Because in the history of calming down, it always works to tell someone to calm down.
Yeah, and also it's great when the people saying calm down are the ones that have the most temper tantrums, and they just get away with it.
And are the exact reason that you're not calm.
Yes.
Like, you can't, you can't light someone on fire and then be like, hey,
calm down.
What'd you do there?
Yeah.
You're going to burn alive.
You're going to burn. Why'd you do that for?
Oh my gosh. Did you not bring a fire extinguisher?
Yeah.
What? Oh my. You should be more prepared. My mom always had a fire extinguisher.
Oh yeah. When the mom stuff starts. Yeah. Yeah. I think they would do well.
Yeah. I think so. It would go well, I think.
It'd go real well.
I don't think that the world would turn into a burning inferno in a mere 12 hours.
Quickly. Yeah, give them a day of period pain and oh shit.
One day.
One
day. Just live with that for one day.
Enjoy.
You know what else I think I might add to the day? Just a random bout of crying at the most inopportune time. Just some crying for no good reason.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
then someone needs to find you and say, why are you crying? And them have no answer. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You have to know. Why are you crying? I don't know, though.
I don't know.
I don't know.
My body hurts.
Yeah, things
and
are
it's
messed up.
It's leaking. Okay, it's leaking from all over. So
actively leaking liquids as we speak.
And I'm not. I'm bleeding, but I'm not dying. So
Yeah,
you
so
know.
please make a joke about that.
Yeah.
How you shouldn't trust an animal that bleeds for 5 days and doesn't die. Okay, good one. Good one.
Great.
Yeah. I love thinking about the first guy that ever came up with that at his Elks Lodge meeting on Thursday night. And was like, you know what I was thinking, Billy? Is have you ever come across an animal that bleeds for 5 days and doesn't die? That's what I'm saying.
And everyone's high-fiving like,
Yeah,
that's so funny. Oh, my
right.
God.
Last 7. What? Like, okay. And then that just spread. And then I hear that 1 to 2 times a year. I see it on something, hear it somewhere. Like, you can't trust something. Okay. Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
Says the
you're
guy
absolutely
with
right.
appendage that just randomly rises on your
Yeah.
body.
Yep.
Because I'm supposed to trust levitating
And then we
things.
have to respond to that appendage.
Yeah.
We have to be responsible for that appendage. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Good
got-
times,
Sorry,
good
that
times.
took a turn. I didn't mean to make it so dark at the end there. Woo-hoo-hoo. Sorry.
I mean, that's just, it's truth.
It's the right stuff.
It's the right stuff. Should we talk about some books?
Yes,
Because we have some books on this theme.
we do.
This is how we do it.
This is how we do a podcast. We came up with a theme and then we share some books that we read.
So now I'm going to talk about a fiction book
What?
that fits this theme.
Okay.
It's called How to Be Eaten by Maria Edelman.
Okay.
This came out earlier this year. And
Title's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. The book starts in New York, and we're
Okay.
in a basement conference room. Okay, depressing as hell. It's a support group for women with very unique circumstances, all involving some kind of major media scandal or attention, with a bit of a twist. Because there's Ruby, and she has told this crazy story since she was a kid of a man who looked an awful lot like a wolf and who ate her until she was rescued by a stranger cutting his stomach open. And now she wears a wolf fur coat all
Okay.
the time. Okay. There's Ruby. Then there's Bernice. She was a sort of nobody until a tech billionaire known as Bluebeard and an obsession. He has an actual blue beard and he has an obsession with blue stuff. And he builds a house across from her family's home. And he's interested in her, which is great until she's locked in his house. And he says, I gave you this key, but you can't look in this specific room. Then there's Ashley, who won a Bachelor type show called The One.
Oh, boy.
And she was all in, except the show started airing and she had become the villain. And she's not so sure that she got her fairy tale ending. Then there's Gretel, who swears that she and her brother were held captive as kids in a house made of candy.
Uh-huh.
And then there's Raina, who everyone sort of recognizes, but they can't quite place where they know her. And she has a story that ties everything together, and I won't reveal it because it's pretty good. So the women are very wary of each other, and they're sort of judging each other as they tell their story. But over the course of 5 weeks, they start to recognize all the things they have in common and who's really at fault. It's a really cool idea. Obviously, it's, building on fairy tales, making them a little modern, looking at specifically the women and how they might be treated in today's clusterfuck of society. There's a great structure because each week of therapy, someone new tells their story. So you get that way. It's very propulsive, but it's so smart and so thoughtful. And I chose it for this theme because all of them got in this mess because they were trying to be the right stuff. They were trying to fit it to what men wanted and changing themselves or getting into danger because of it. And of course, like I said, these are all adapted fairy tales, which are just nightmares, really, especially for women. Like if you look at especially some of the original ones, they're friggin' nightmares. Women are always eaten or torn up or somehow, the villain.
Right. Yes.
Or you're either unconscious and perfect and someone comes along and, makes out with you, or you're a real person and you're eaten.
Yeah.
So I love that this sort of takes the fairy tale concepts and modernizes it, but also brings in our media culture. Like Ashley, I'm picturing as like Cinderella type, but she becomes this villain because of, the way reality shows are structured. So it's about who we prop up, who we tear down. It's great.
Gosh,
It's
it
such a
sounds
great
amazing.
concept. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I'll have to
Really
read that
enjoyable
one.
to read. And it's fun, too, to sort of like, as you're going through place, like, oh, I know what this story is, but ooh, today that would be exactly how this went down.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that idea. What a great concept. Terrific. Well, my fiction pick this week is called Delay Weds Destiny, and this is by Tomi Abaro. Came out in June of this year, and it opens with 3 college friends who are about to reunite after 30 years. They were inseparable in college. They went their different ways, and they went to college in Nigeria, and one of them ended up moving to the United States. The other 2 kind of separated, so they're all different directions, but now one of their daughters is about to wed, and they have all decided that they're going to travel to witness this wedding. So Zainab, Fumi, and Anatan are friends. So different. And more than circumstance made them close. I mean, they truly have a connection, but they all came from very different circumstances. So the novel kind of takes you through 2 timelines. The current timeline is in which Fumi's daughter, Destiny, is the one getting married. And the other one is through college. So we first start out in the timeline of the wedding. And Zainab has been more in contact with Fume and Destiny because she lives closer to them. Destiny even spent some time at her family's home before college. And they kind of have a bond that Destiny is trying to replicate with her mother, but isn't happening. Fumi's just more interested in the appearance of this wedding. And we find out that she's married to a very powerful man, but one that we don't quite know what he does. It's a little dark. He works for the government, but it seems like there might be some illegal bribes or some other things going on. So she seems very concerned with how this is going to appear to everyone else and less concerned about whether or not her daughter's actually happy. So we have that kind of situation happening. On top of that, Zainab's beloved husband is slowly dying. And so this is sort of a break from caretaking for her, but it's also hard for her to be away from the house for this period of time. Then we learn about Anatan, who's traveling from the U.S. with her American daughter, Remy. And neither of them have seen her since college graduation because she basically ran off with an American Peace Corps volunteer that she fell in love with and thought was great, and she left the country. And they have sort of said that they understood, but it's been hard to... I mean, they've stayed in contact, but not as readily as they'd like to. And she's housing the secret that they are divorcing. The relationship ultimately doesn't work. Remy knows this. She's feeling lucky that her daughter agreed to come, but they're kind of at odds because of the whole situation. So all of this is leading up to them coming to Fume's house for the pre-wedding stuff. And they're all going to stay there. But they're also all trying to deal with like being around each other again.
That's stressful to tie to the wedding. Good Lord.
Right. And so many things are happening. So in the middle of that, as we're trying to understand kind of all of them and where they came from, we flash back to their college timeline. And it tells us how they met. And then it kind of goes into some of the experiences that really shaped what we're seeing then of them now. And I don't want to tell too much because some of the revelations are really interesting in where their relationships intersect and why they are having some of the reactions they are having in the modern day wedding timeline. So I really think that this story is about friendship, but I also think it's about understanding how much power and wisdom you get from your own personal experiences and how sometimes we're quick to discount somebody else's experience if we haven't lived it, but how actually powerful those are. I mean, that's really kind of what all reading is, right? We're putting down an experience and we're getting something out of that without having to fully live it ourselves. Yeah. And so I really love this book for that. And I think it's a really powerful story about female friendship and that bond and that how important it can be and how uplifting it can be and how it can be like the one thing in your life that stays when everything else changes. But I also picked it for this theme because a lot of these decisions and a lot of their friendships have been formed by the decisions they had to make around men. Whether that was who they were going to marry, who they loved, who they couldn't marry, where they lived, whether or not they're happy now. A lot of their bonds and their experiences end up being shared because they were forced into decisions that maybe, they would have wish they could do something different. So they're kind of caught under that, especially in Nigeria and a more traditional culture of what they're supposed to do as opposed to what they want to do. So it was highly entertaining. Like there's some great humor in it. I love it when you get 3 different personalities of women all experiencing the same thing and you're sort of watching it through 3 different eyes. I love the idea of going backwards and understanding how they got here and why they're viewing some things the way they are. And it was so cleverly done. All the other side characters that she added in were perfect to help sort of fulfill something that's existing in society right now. Like Anatan's daughter, Remy, she's American born. She looks very American because her dad's white. And so she has this very kind of what people would call woke personality where the whole time they're there, she's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Okay.
And it really serves this important purpose of showing that sometimes it's not your place to go into another culture and say,
and start dictating.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not sometimes, never your place.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's so interesting how she chose to bring in some of these ideas throughout the storyline in the book. So this was her debut novel.
Oh, cool.
It's amazing. I hope that she writes a bunch more. I will tell you, reader, that at first, the way it ended, I was mad. I wanted more, I think. And so I don't know if there's plans for another one or not, but then the more that I sat with the ending, the more I liked it. Because I thought, oh, you know what? That actually is perfect for female friendship and three friends. And so I think that if that's your gut reaction, if you read it and your first reaction is like, oh, I kind of wanted more in the ending, I think sit for it with a little bit and really think about what the author was doing there. And I think you'll get to where I am too, that it was actually perfect for the book.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I really like to, you know, it's always interesting to explore like how I think we're taught that ultimately our friendships aren't as important as relationships.
Right.
Especially among women. That ultimately we have to prioritize what we should do, which is focus on the men over maybe prioritizing our friendships and where we get most of our support.
Yeah, I loved it. And it was a quick read because it's so fun and interesting and you get to see some of this wedding stuff happening and it was great.
Awesome. I want to provide a quick update. We have a visitor.
Yes, we do.
Which is rare. Louise
Very rare.
rarely visits us.
Very rare.
And she is staring at you hard.
She did not like the sneezes.
And usually she kind of steers clear of our recording shenanigans.
Yeah.
But today, she's decided this is the day. 120 episodes in.
You didn't even have to say the number.
I didn't even have to, and somehow I did it.
Is it the sunny spot? It feels like maybe
that might
moved
be
to the sunny spot.
Yeah, I don't know. And now she's eating her own hair, so that's good.
I mean,
you know, there are many times when I brush her and she tries to eat the pile of hair. I'm like, honey, you don't have to I will clean it up for you. It's fine. It feels like such a woman, like, okay, fine, I'll clean up.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
Sorry. I didn't mean to make a mess. Yeah, exactly.
I got it. It's fine.
I'm on it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, for my nonfiction pick.
Yes. I almost was just going into mine. And then I was like, wait, that's not the order.
No.
120
Remember
in.
how we do this.
I just said, nah, not today.
All right, so my nonfiction pick,
your
because that's how it works. We
exactly.
switch off.
Back and forth. Okay.
Is called Tell Me Everything, the story of a private investigation. And this is by Erica Krauss, and it came out this year. And this is true crime. This is memoir. This is a lot of things all packed into a pretty fascinating story. So the author, Erica, she starts by telling us that she's had people telling her secrets for years. She says that she has this face that somehow invites it. Like people will say things like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, and then just spill all their darkest stuff. And I've never had anything like that happen. So that was immediately attractive to me to like, what is that like if people are just dumping stuff on you?
Right.
And in one case, in 2002, she's in a bookstore and a guy starts telling her about all of his doubts and fears in life. And I just pictured her as like, I'm just trying to get a book. Yeah. But he's telling her all this. And then he's sort of shocked. He's like, wait, I didn't mean to tell you any of this. And then he's like, he offers her a job because he's a lawyer. And he needs an investigator that will work in the background and get people to tell secrets that will help in the case of a lawsuit. And he especially wants her for a case that he's taken on, which they're based in Colorado. And the university in their town has a massive football program. And a college girl has filed suit because she was assaulted by football players and recruits at a party. And so Erica hears this. She knows right away this is probably not smart to take this case, because she has her own history with sexual violence, things she hasn't fully come to terms with, but she takes it because she needs money. She's attracted by the lawyer's commitment to the case, to the desire to like really figure out what the hell is going on in this program and to try and eradicate a little bit of rape culture.
Right.
So for 5 years, Erica works on this case, and she tracks down witnesses. She builds evidence that the university knew and allowed this to happen. And over that time, the story is leaking to the press, and the investigation becomes national news, and it becomes this historic civil rights case. And so she feels really good to be part of this, but at the same time, in her personal life, she finds a great partner, but she also begins to reckon with her really messed up family history. It's so compelling. It's a great look into football culture, into, that region culture, this definition of masculinity. And I chose it for this theme because in that case they're working on, the football program, I mean, this is not news to anybody, but the football program and the players are God, right? They can do no wrong. They are kings of the university. They are the only ones with the right stuff. Like they are, priority above all else. And anyone else, especially women, are there to serve them. And as we see in the memoir portions, that's not just in football. In her family, the men were most important. So this takes a major look, I think, at the male gaze and what it can translate to. It's this fascinating look at a real story, this real investigation. I will say this is tough. This gets really into a lot of things that are hard to look at, both in the investigation and in her life. So just know that going in. If that's not your, cup of tea, just that is totally fine. But yeah, if you're interested in it's very well done, and it's compelling as hell. But I still left being like, I want to have a face where people tell me stuff.
Where people just tell you stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really have. I mean, I've often been accused of attracting weirdos, which I do.
Definitely, I think that's something different because I think we both attract weirdos.
Yeah, and like weird situations. But I've never had. I mean, not like someone that I didn't know. Just be like, hey, I want to tell you all of these things.
Yeah.
Like. That could be. I'm closed off usually to strangers too. Like
that's true. I think we're deliberately like, do not talk to anyone.
Yeah, I don't want this.
Especially at a bookstore. Leave me alone.
At a bookstore feels like a
dare you?
Huge. How very dare you? How very dare you?
Don't tell me about your stupid
life.
life.
Do you know the amount of time it took me to get this alone time to come to the bookstore and search, and now you want to lay your problems at my feet?
You don't think I've got people telling me their shit all the time?
No, sir. No.
Yeah, that felt like a violation.
I really want to know what section she was in, because it could make it way worse or way better.
I think it said what section, and I don't remember.
Because if you're in fiction, I feel like absolutely not.
Yeah.
If you're in nonfiction, in like certain sections, absolutely not, because you're clearly dealing with something else, like a self-help, like you got your own stuff. I feel like maybe the only place is like Sudoku section. Like the puzzle section.
Or the books for like taking the bathroom to like bathroom humor books.
Yeah. Then you can be like, okay, you could handle something, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it was a non-fiction, like serious place.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Sir, no. I said good day.
Good day.
Good
to
day.
you and your issues. Leave me with my books.
That's great. You have a law firm. I don't believe you. That's what would happen. That's what I would do.
Me too.
I'd be like, that's a scam.
You are making all of this up.
You are a scam.
Somehow you have targeted me.
Yeah.
And I will not have it.
I won't. I will not have it. Not today, not any day.
I think that reveals a lot about our personalities.
You're right. Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
I am too. Yeah. I don't think I would be different.
I don't want to talk to people. Don't talk to me. Don't tell me your shit.
I don't want you to offer me a job, because then I just have to figure out a way to say no.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I just increasingly don't like one-on-one conversation with people I don't know very well, because I find myself agreeing to things or something like that, and I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. Or like you try to make small talk, and then you're like, this got weird fast.
This got real weird.
To say.
We wouldn't do well in this situation.
No. Yeah. I was just imagining it more, and it's not good.
It's not good.
Well, my other genre pick this week is a collection of short stories by Maggie Shipstead called Do You Have a Friend in 10A?
Oh.
And this came out in May of 2022. So I have recommended seating arrangements by her before. She also wrote, and it got a lot of traction over the last year, I think it's called The Great Circle.
Yes, yeah. I've seen.
I was going to say The Circle, but I think it's The Great Circle.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So all of these stories were fascinating, and they're all super different, like really different characters, settings. Like the first story is on a horse ranch in a remote rural area in Montana, and then we go to Paris, and then we're on a honeymoon in Romania. Like they're all over the place, and the characters are so different. But what I realized after the first few is that as much as the characters are compelling and the change of scenery and the pacing, it's really varied and interesting. What I really liked is I realized that all of these stories were really about kind of men behaving badly
Oh.
after not getting what they think they deserve. Like, I think I deserve this, so this is my reaction to that. And if you
that's
started to look at
perfect.
all the stories through that lens, it was really kind of clicking into place. And I'm not sure entirely if she meant it that way, or these are all just crazy great stories she had in her head, but that's why I picked it for this theme, because collectively, that to me, that's what was going on. One of my favorite ones, I think it was the second story, it's called Acknowledgements, and it's this, Caucasian male writer who is just befuddled by an experience that he has in a creative writing class in a critique group. And so then later he's recounting this to someone as he's writing the acknowledgments for his book that's about to be published. And he's still angry about how dare this female had this right to tell him how much his writing sucked. And he includes that, and he's trying to figure out how to write this acknowledgement. And it goes through his behavior at the time, which involves like writing her into one of his stories in like the worst way possible. Yeah, it gets weird. And I was like, oh my gosh. And you dislike him wholeheartedly, but I loved the story because it felt like
totally accurate.
Kind of to jump on something you said, it feels like something someone would tell me happened to them.
Yes.
Like that was actually true.
Yes.
The one on the horse ranch, the guy that owns it takes this lady in when she was kind of down on her luck. They spend a lot of time together. He naturally decides that she's the best thing and he's in love, and he professes that, and she says absolutely not. And then he takes it out on her for the rest of the time that she works at the ranch. Yeah. It's all of these situations that you're like, this is getting very weird and but also very true to life.
Absolutely. What a great, and like you said, maybe it wasn't the original, maybe she didn't intend it that way, but what a great concept to bring all those around.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it felt like to me when I was thinking about this theme that it really encapsulates to me what the male gaze is all about, which is I want it, and so I should, and it's never occurred to me that I can't have it.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, that's like the quintessential thing, right? Like, I should have it, I want it, so who's to stop me?
And if anyone gets in the way, woe be to them.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It was a quick read. This, like I said, the stories are so varied and the pacing that you just like, you kind of fly through them. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I read short story collections, I think it takes me a little bit because I'm like looking for the common thread sometimes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can throw me off at first. Like, oh, these are all like so different that what is it? And then the more I read, I was like, oh, she did something really smart here with these male characters.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was. And the idea that it's all these different settings and all these different places sort of helps solidify that that's a universal truth.
Absolutely. And also that writing group one is very familiar.
Yes.
We've been in some writing groups.
Yes.
We have seen some poor behavior.
You have particularly had some bad male behavior.
Yeah. The behavior and also the writing, and then the reaction to things pointed out in the writing, like that feels very right. Maybe I'm a character in that this one particular dude's book.
You might be.
Yeah.
You might be.
Because he did not appreciate what I was saying.
Which was, I know what you said, and it was entirely accurate.
Yeah.
So
here we are being cryptic, but just in case. Weirdos out there.
That kind of energy, that's scary.
It is.
I don't need that.
It's scary.
I don't need that. I already got a different guy stalker from that other workshop we took, and I don't need another one.
You're right. The fact also that we both attract weirdos is very dangerous for when we hang out together.
It's so dangerous.
Because consistently, there's always been some weirdos.
Always.
Attaching to one or the other or both of us. Hey, speaking of creepy guys.
Oh.
My pop culture pick. Phenomenal.
That was a transition. I don't even know. That goes in the Hall of Fame of transitions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although it feels like that could relate to a lot of things. Speaking of creepy guys.
Anywhere. That's where I was like, I didn't know if I was getting a story. I didn't know if we were going pop culture, because a lot of our conversations start with listen to this creepy guy story. Yes.
Well, here we go. Okay. So my pop culture is a movie film. It is called Fresh. And it's on Hulu. Came out earlier this year.
Yes.
Has Sebastian Stan.
Yes.
And Daisy Edgar Jones. Remember, I've said multiple occasions, I'm a huge fan of Sebastian Stan.
As you should be.
As I should. This movie is wild.
Really?
So we start as a romance. Okay. And actually, it starts on a bad date. So Daisy Edgar Jones plays Noah, and she's on a bad date. She's at this restaurant with this like uber douche that keeps telling her like about cryptocurrency or something. Like, it's just ridiculous. And she met him online, and it's just so bad. And after, she's despairing, you know, just like, it's just one douche after another. It's just one shitty date after another.
Yes.
And then she meets a guy at a grocery store, like a real life experience. And it feels almost like a movie, right? And Steve is sweet. He's funny. He's kind of awkward. He's a doctor. And he's freaking Sebastian Stan, so he's super hot.
Of course, yeah, naturally.
So they start dating. And he's refreshing because he's not on social media. He values like in-person communication. He's very romantic. And in fact, he schedules a surprise getaway for the two of them in this wonderful remote house that has no cell service, and you don't know like where it is. And she doesn't really have time to tell anyone where it is. And then suddenly, a half hour in, the movie completely shifts. We are not watching a romantic comedy. We are watching a horror movie and a thriller. I can't say the details and ruin the surprise. It is bonkers. Let's just say that Sebastian Stan gets to be a villain, and holy hell is he good at it. What's even wilder is then what happens next and how Noah plans her way out, because she is stuck at this house for various reasons that, again, I cannot reveal.
Oh my gosh.
Along the way, we also meet Molly, who is Noah's ride or die best friend. And Molly immediately knows something is wrong, and she will not give up until she finds out. And she tracks Steve down. She tracks the people in Steve's life down, and she is going to find where they are. We also meet a whole slew of gross dudes who are part of an enterprise that Sebastian Stan has created.
Oh, God.
In their creepiness. They're hilarious and creepy and just everything.
Oh, my gosh.
So for this theme, I chose it for this theme because online dating is gross and hellish in so many ways.
Right.
And it caters to the male gaze, really, as Noah says, and as she knows. So meeting in real life is so refreshing, right? But she doesn't have the ways to check on him that we now have. So she has to figure out how to be the right stuff for him. And that includes being spontaneous and going on this trip. And then, oh, shit. And she learns it's a major trap. So once you watch it, you'll realize there's this whole other level of being the right stuff that I just can't talk about. I even debated whether I was going to bring this to the show today because the central plot point, if you want to know it, you can find it online. I mean, it's been spoiled many places, but it's so much better going in not really knowing.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I need to emphasize that I trust you and I will be each other's Molly and not give up if one or the other is hijacked, even by Sebastian Stan.
I will not let it go.
Okay, good.
Until I see you in person, separate from him, and you say, no, this is actually just a great 4-day weekend of sex. Until you tell me that.
Right.
And I know that you're not a robot. And that he hasn't mimicked your voice. Then
that he is not using you as a puppet from another room or anything.
Then only then will I allow you to stay.
Okay. Yeah, same here.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you the story about Mike pick and rolling me I ended up in our neighbor's basement and I thought I wasn't going to get out?
Wait, what?
No, I didn't. Okay, good. Yeah, because it should ring a bell right away. Perhaps maybe the biggest fight we've ever had. So this was not where we live now. This is our previous home. There was a neighbor who was the creepy meter went off the charts right away. Okay, the first time I met him. Also a doctor.
By the way, I think our women's creepy meter is so much more attuned.
So attuned.
Because it's a matter of survival. We've had to learn who is creepy and get a feel right away.
Yes.
Anyway, continue.
He was married and they had two twins is redundant. They had a set of twins.
Sure.
And little girls. And they were, we had seen them in the neighborhood. Mike had talked to him before, didn't really care for him that much, but we happened to be in the side yard. This is our old home, and he was talking to us. And then he said, I wanted to show you that I redid all these things in the basement. So She has gotten her. Okay. Interruption from Louise.
Louise has found the carryout bag.
She's full in it.
She's full in it? Yeah, that sounds right.
Just her tiny head's poking out.
She loves a good bag,
From
a
here,
good box.
you could not tell that she is a full-bodied cat. You would think that's a kitten. She has smushed herself. Oh, she's also pushed out the dirty napkin.
Yeah, that sounds right. Good job.
you.
Good job, Louise.
Good for you.
Man, she is vying to be a co-host.
Are you wanting me to take you in this bag? So anyway, we walk from the side yard and we went around the back down into his basement. Like it had a slider, right? So you didn't go through the front of the house, you went down the back.
Okay.
It is only when we turned around to close the slider that I realized Mike didn't follow. And it's literally me and this guy. And he turns around and he shuts the slider. And I'm like, oh, yeah, the paint looks great. And he's showing me rooms and telling me about how they lock from the outside.
What?
And I was like, I don't understand. And I was like, I already thought he was weird, so I didn't ask any follow-up questions. So I'm like, why am I don't want to know why your room's locked from the outside. So he's opening them to show me and acting like I'm going to go in and look. And I'm just I'm standing in the hallway. I'm like, looks good. So then I see that there's stairs that go upstairs. And I was like, oh, I better get going. And I went up the stairs because I figured that's where the wife and kids are, right?
Yeah.
So unless they're in on the sick plot, he's probably not going to murder me in front of them.
Right.
So I go up the stairs, and his wife's face when I come up the stairs is like, why are you in my basement? Both of the girls are at the piano playing at the same time. When I tell you that the level of creepy went from like 7
This is like The Shining
to 27,
Yeah.
I was like, he's going to show me the basement. I need to go. Out the front door. I get home. Zach and Mike are both inside watching TV. And I walked in the door and I shut it and I came down in the living room and I said, what in the actual fuck? You wanted me to die? Like, what is
How
this?
dare you leave me?
And he's like, yeah, where have you been? I was like, where? Where have I been? And I said, he asked us to go look at that thing. I turned around and you weren't there. And he's like, I didn't hear any part of that conversation. He's like, I was not even paying attention.
He shut the door behind me and talked about outside locks.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, so at what point were you going to come looking for me? He's like, I thought you walked around the back of the house and were doing something outside. I didn't realize you followed him. So I don't even know what point in the conversation Mike had exited, but he had exited before that. And then his follow-up thing was like, why would you follow him? I'm like, well, I thought that. Whoa. Yeah, it was rough. It was not good.
Oh, Michael. Mm-hmm. All those nice things we said about you being best friends with Mark Wahlberg. I take them all back.
Take them back.
Unless you have learned your lesson from that moment.
He did.
Okay,
he did.
good.
But then I absolutely refused to even engage with that person
Hell
after that.
no.
Because I felt like I got away with my life and I shouldn't tempt fate again.
Why would you tell someone that you have outside locks? And also,
why do you have outside locks?
Why do you have them? And when you purchase outside locks, do they put you on a watch list? Because they should.
They should. You have 2 young children. Why do you have outside locks?
Why are they on the piano at the same time?
I don't know.
Were they dressed the same?
Yeah.
Oh,
no! They were always dressed the same.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, and they were real quiet. They would never talk. Even if you spoke to... Yeah. It wasn't great.
This is terrible.
Couple that with the kid who thought he always saw a murder clown and was best friends with Mike, that little guy on the bike. He was obsessed with Mike, and so if he heard Mike's truck or he saw that Mike was coming home, he would fly down his driveway on the bike. Mike! That's what you would hear until Mike would pay attention to him, and then he would be like, I saw a murder clown today.
What?
He always led with a murder clown, and we're like, I don't think that's true. But okay. And Mike would always engage. He'd be like, well, what'd you do? Well, I ran. That's smart.
That's...
Okay, what? Why are we having this conversation? And then we decided to move. See why.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. Whew, that's terrifying.
Sorry. Anyway, that was a tangent.
If I had known you then, I would have been Molly and I would have come for you.
Yes, I feel much better now knowing that if that were
you
to
could have
happen,
texted me. We need a secret code word for when you're in a basement and there's outside locks.
Yes.
What do you think that code word should be?
Yeah, what should that code word be?
Maybe it's just creep.
Yeah, creep.
Yeah.
Creep alert.
Yeah.
Something's going down.
And then creep is a cue for me to, like, I need to connect with you, like, on Friend Finder or something so that I can immediately find your location.
Yes. And then check in and say, why is she texting me creep?
Yes.
Because something's going down.
Uh-huh.
I also like the idea of it being something a little more like porcupine.
I like that too. That it's not totally related.
No.
It's like a code.
Yeah, it's a code.
Yeah.
And then, because then I kind of like the idea of you having to try and get the police involved and be like, she texted porcupine.
She texted porcupine.
That's the biggest SOS you can.
Yeah.
And them having to be like,
Is it?
is it though?
Like, listen.
That's how codes work.
Yeah.
You missed that day at the academy. That's how codes
Don't you
work.
know your history?
Yeah. God. Doubting me.
Lord.
Anyway, okay, so my pop culture pick.
Yeah.
I went with some of this nostalgic music feeling.
Oh, nice.
It's kind of a 2-for-1.
Okay.
Is what you're getting.
Okay.
And I'm recommending that you watch both Woodstock documentaries.
Oh, my.
And by Woodstock, I mean Woodstock 99. I don't mean Woodstock 69.
Oh, boy.
I mean Woodstock 99. On
You mean
Netflix.
the massive clusterfuck of sexual violence. And,
Yes.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Netflix, it's called Trainwreck, Woodstock 99. And HBO, it's called Music Box, Woodstock 99, Peace, Love, and Rage.
Yeah.
So I picked it for this theme because, as you alluded to, what came out after that festival ended was just horror stories of awfulness, things that happened. But and you may or may not have heard at that time, depending on your age and all of that stuff. But what I found most fascinating about the documentaries and why I picked it for this is that they were really focused on the fact that the guy that founded Woodstock 69 also did the 99 one. And his whole idea was that in 69 there was this sort of like coming together about this idea of war and peace, right? So he thought that there needed to be like a collective reason that people got together, and for him it was going to be gun violence. We need to get rid of the guns. It was coming off of Columbine. We need to focus on gun violence. So that was the whole reason. And he basically, what it comes down to is they fundamentally say, a lot of the artists that were there too say that they feel that that was never going to work because of the culture of guys at that time. But mostly because when they put Woodstock together, their headliners were people like Limp Bizkit, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Kid Rock.
Yeah, this whole like new metal phase that was like,
yeah, that was just
yeah,
ragey and
yes.
angry and corn and just like coming at it. And it brought this kind of idea that, and when you had all these guys there together collectively,
very certain kind of guys,
a very certain kind of guy. And then on top of it, the whole thing was a train wreck. They didn't have infrastructure set up at all. So there was really no checks and balances for anyone. It sort of created this like anger, rage, I get what I want feeling. And that's where all these assaults came from, and sexual violence, all these horrible things that happened as a result of that. And so I thought it was so interesting paired with this week because it really came down to this almost idea of groupthink, of all these guys getting together and being like, oh yeah, this is all okay. And then the organizers being surprised, like, oh, well, we didn't.
What happened?
What did you think? And I like both of them. This is why I'm recommending both. The first one we watched was the one on Netflix, and it focused a lot more on, I want to say a little bit more on the artists that were there and their role in it. They pointed out the fact that there was only 3 female artists the whole weekend, that a lot of the people that were there, that wasn't even, they weren't picked because they were peaceful or the songs that they promoted, they were popular. And the second one really focused a lot on the infrastructure problems, that they didn't have waste management lined up. They didn't have adequate water supply, all of these things that had happened. But in both of them, there's a promoter, and his name is John Shear. And if you are looking for a new person to vilify, or you need a new villain or a new person to hate, you've got to watch both of these, because you just want to punch that guy in the face every time he talks. I mean, the things that come out of that guy's mouth are just unbelievable. And you can see why this just was a train wreck.
Wow.
You can see why they call it train wreck. You can see why it was, because he didn't give 2 shits about anyone at that place. And he didn't give 2 shits about the idea of Woodstock. He cared only about making money.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because they talked about, there was a Woodstock in 94.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they talked about the fact that in terms of success, it was better, obviously, than this one because of infrastructure, all the violence and stuff. But they didn't make any money. They didn't, because they hadn't built it right, and the fences ended up coming down, and basically everyone got in for free. So there was this huge pressure going into 99 that it had to make money. And so it's so interesting to see that. It's interesting. They talked to a lot of different artists in both of them, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Like they had different things to say and different perspectives. They talked to Moby in one of them, and his viewpoint was very different than, like he said, I got off the bus and he said, I don't know how to describe this to anyone, but we were going to walk around, before, and I had this idea, Woodstock.
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
like, I got off the bus and he said, I took 2 stops off our tour bus and I turned around and said, something is wrong. Like, I don't know if we should do this. Like, I don't know if we should play here. Like, something is wrong.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just very interesting. They talk a lot about Fred Durst. They blame him for some of the stuff because they said that he came on at a pivotal time when the crowd was really hyped up. Everybody was hot. The heat index was crazy. And he basically could have like maybe brought the crowd down, but instead did the opposite. But then other people are like, look, that's what you hired him to do. I mean, that was his
As
whole...
a performer. Yeah. And you hire Limp Bizkit, that's what you're going to get.
That's what you're going to get. So how do you blame him for putting on what he considered a good show? It's your job to have the crowd control, not his, So it's fascinating. They're both pretty quick. Like the Netflix one might be just a little bit longer. Like I think it's broken into episodes, but the HBO one's like an hour and 20 minutes or something. And I really, truly enjoyed both. And I thought it's horrific and trigger warning because there is a lot of discussion of assault and sexual violence. But looking at it as a culture and looking at it as how we've sort of allowed that to happen by giving passes to these certain things is very... It was an interesting take on it. It was interesting to see it play out like that.
Well, I remember too, even at the time, the rhetoric was more about like, oh, these spoiled kids rioting because their water's too expensive. They weren't even talking about like the sexual violence. They weren't talking about any of the real dark stuff. It was an excuse for like older people to shit on the younger generation, which is, a time-honored tradition. Everyone does that. But yeah, it was all, the talk was all about the wrong things.
And that is true. Like they were talking about the water being too expensive, but the reality is that it was. I mean, they were just gouging people and the heat index was 120 and the rest of the water things weren't working. So, I mean, truly not an acceptable condition for anyone, regardless. So... And they explored that too, like with some of the vendors talking about how like the prices were set by the people putting it on. They didn't even have like their own freedom to be able to do what they thought was right.
Yikes.
And yeah, there was is fascinating. It's fascinating from an infrastructure perspective. It's fascinating from a music perspective, from a people perspective. There's just so many interesting factors there. And to listen to them, just to watch that John Shear guy in press conferences was fascinating. The way he handled stuff was just unbelievable. Pretty good. I'm just saying, pretty good.
I mean, we've got Louise, who is making her presence known again. Also, we have Thelma here. Like, this is a podcast palooza here.
What is happening?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because we're recording downstairs outside of our usual studio because it's too freaking hot upstairs.
Maybe they also just felt like they had things to say about the male gaze.
Maybe they do. I mean, they live with let's be honest, a not very enlightened male. And
with Ziggy.
Yeah.
And
so
the thing.
They saw the two of us and they're like, let's contribute to this feminist discussion.
Yes. And we appreciate it.
Yeah, we do.
We appreciate it. Mm-hmm. I like it. We never get that.
We never do.
No, we did at the beginning sometimes.
Yeah. Because we were more of a curiosity, but then we got boring to them. Yeah.
No, I am both over here now.
Oh, boy.
Well, I think Thelma might be interested in this bag.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what are you doing having fun with this? Mm-hmm. Louise is not giving it up. I know you can't see this, listeners, but Louise is not seceding ground. That is not going to happen for you, Thelma.
I wouldn't feel too bad about this for Thelma. She's got plenty of other places to go. This is just a novelty issue.
A cat wonderland.
Yeah.
That's true.
This is
They're also both angrily staring at their cat carrier. So.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I left it there to sort of, just normalize it.
Yeah,
so that
smart.
Which sometimes works, but then maybe every once in a while they
just get an
realize,
angry feeling.
That's the thing that takes me away.
That's the thing that takes me to that guy I don't like.
To get shots.
Yeah.
And to get something pushed up my butt. I don't like it.
What is that?
They put a thermometer up their butt to test their temperature.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Huh. Well, on that note. Cat butt thermometers. We're going to call it an episode. Yep,
on that note, we are marking the end of summer. We
end of
are
summer.
Marking
Hallelujah.
marking the end of our 80s pop theme songs.
Yes. Bring on the fall.
Oh, God, yeah. I think finally this year I have become a fall person. Not let's be clear, not like a pumpkin spice crazy.
Are you sure? You need me to bring you some pumpkin
No,
spice?
I'm very sure. More of like, oh, I finally get why change in seasons is good, because I am miserable. I think just the heat, I am just done. I hate it. I didn't used to be this way. It's probably, age and physical stuff and all of that.
Well, I've truly tried over the last year to embrace this idea that I don't have to be someone I'm not. So I've given up the idea that I have to spend time outdoors.
Yeah.
If that's not me, that's okay.
Yeah.
There are outdoorsy people, and that is great for you. I'm happy for you. I love that. That feels like a connective thing for you. It does not.
It does not for me.
So
no,
I'm
I've
okay.
spent most of the summer inside.
Yeah, and I feel good about it. I'm excited for the end of summer because children are back in school.
Man, this week was good for you.
It was good for me.
Yeah. Tuesday was your Independence Day.
It was.
Yeah.
I just ran around screaming freedom with my audiobook at 20, volume 20. And
Yeah, you did. You didn't have anyone coming to you and asking you questions?
No.
Trying to get meals from you?
I didn't have to make meals and snacks and break up fights and tell people to get off screens and tell people to shower for the first time in 3 days, or heaven forbid, sound like a parent and say, get outside. I don't want to see
God.
you. It's just.
Well, I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
And your newfound freedom.
I do feel good about it.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just thinking that, about how weekends go so quickly, but then I was like, but Monday's also a glorious
Feels real
day.
good.
It's a glorious day.
So you've got a new lease on life.
New lease on
as we
life.
leave August behind.
See ya.
And who knows? Maybe we'll have another theme. You
never know.
Coming. You never know. You never know.
You never know. We might move into 90s. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? We might get real selective and say only hits from the 2010s.
Good Lord, we might.
don't
Wouldn't that
know.
be crazy?
Well, done crazier.
Also, our definition of hits from the 2010s will be different from maybe other people's because, we reached a certain age at which pop culture changed.
Can't even name something.
I
in the
couldn't even
2010s.
name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay, Erin.
That's okay.
That's
too.
okay.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, we'll be back. Couple weeks.
Yep.
Hot new take.
Maybe we'll have Thelma and Louise join us again. Maybe they'll tell us their latest plans for a feminist crime spree.
I hope so.
Or maybe they'll just focus on a paper bag again.
Either way, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, me too.
In the meantime,
Happy reading.